most people are okay with being burnout. And even in America, you said that individualism is an American culture, value that I had set aside to avoid burning out. So, how would you describe burnout and burnout culture if you have to explain that?
Yeah, I think so. From the time that book came out until now, I've done a lot more. I did another degree. I've done more research. I've done a lot more reading. And so things have updated since then. But right now, if we're going to define burnout, we have to talk about the actual definition of the World Health Organization first, because that gives us the foundation for where we're starting. Because I don't believe that we should just all be talking about a topic and talking about different things, really. So the World Health Organization definition of burnout is that it is an occupational hazard. It is not a diagnosis in the United States currently. It is in, the Netherlands, but it's not a diagnosis in the United States. And so it's an occupational hazard, and it has three components, and they are exhaustion, cynicism, and low productivity or lack of impact. And so each of those we could dive into further. There's a lot to talk about there, but I think that's what burnout is as far as we're defining it right now. My personal definition of burnout, I do not care if it happens in the workplace. Caregivers get burnt out. Mothers and fathers that are working at home with their children get burnt out. It's not only work related, and the stressors that cause burnout are not always work related as well. So I think that the definition needs some updating, but I understand why they did it the way they did it. To me, burnout is the stop on the chronic stress train that happens before, and this is the thing, we always think of burnout as like the end game of chronic stress, but chronic stress leads to burnout. And then if we don't deal with it, after that, it leads to heart disease, cardiovascular issues, stroke, heart attack, diabetes, etc.
Wow.
So burnout is the stop along the chronic stress pathway that sometimes has some other disease process associated with it. Maybe it's depression, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's an autoimmune disorder, etc. And then as it drags out, if it does not get solved, most of the time that ends up with something that requires hospitalization.
Wow, interesting. That's very powerful. Thank you for joining us. Those that are participating on all the platforms, please tell us where you're joining us from. If you have a question for our guests, please put it in the chat so we can read it out for our guests to know that you're here and you have a question. Now, you just clearly say, well, the definition of burnout is probably changing. World Health Organization has a definition and things like that. At least they're acknowledging that there's something that is called burnout. So it's not everybody that even knows.
Right. And so I think that was, they did that just before the pandemic. So the definition of burnout, according to the World Health Organization, was standardized May 28th, 2019, like just in time for a global pandemic. And then because of the fact that it was formalized and then the pandemic happened, since May of 2019, we have had an explosion of research into burnout because of that. So I think it's a really good thing that they at least created some foundation for us to start from.
Wow. Thank you for sharing